As a firefighter, we once rolled up to a car accident where this kid about 17 years old had run into the concrete pillar under a highway overpass. Car was totally wrecked. Kid's arm was broken in 3 or 4 places and was bleeding pretty bad. The first thing he said to me when I got up to his driver's side window, "The car is not stolen. There is no reason to call the cops." Normally people say stuff like, "I'm hurt bad" or "get me out of here," but not this guy. He just kept repeating "the car is not stolen" over and over. We called the cops. My brother didn't exactly incriminate himself, but he sure made himself unpopular. He was DJing on a party boat when they got raided, just as the police were boarding their boat, and he claims he didn't do it intentionally, having only noticed the police after the record was spinning. He played out KRS-One sound of the police and, of course, a fair number of the partygoers were joining in with the whoop whoop. The police were not amused, taking it to be a deliberate attempt at humor at their expense. Record got taken off. My brother got an earful. Your brother is a hero, accidental or otherwise. There was a case years ago where a man had been accused from breaking into vending machines and parking meters. The constantly denied the charges, then had his bail paid in coin. Hey man, he was just a simple coin collector. Lawyer: since the accident, have you done anything else to alleviate the pain? Plaintiff witness: I smoke weed every day. This was during a deposition and was not admitted before the jury because it was scandalous and impertinent. My sort of stepdad failed a roadside sobriety test. He was taken to the county jail where he registered 0.0 back because he hadn't been drinking. I watched this happen. His lack of coordination is legendary. I was once pulled over in a crappy neighborhood. Being of a race that was not endemic to the area, the police asked to search my car. I, stupidly, I was young and foolish, "Get off my nuts," said yes, and then jokingly added, "Remember though, this is my mom's car, so any crack is hers." Second search, canine search, and intimidating personal search all turn up nothing. I learned never to speak to the police, and all it cost me was a little dignity and a few constitutional rights. Saying you have C is probable cause for search to be fair equals P. The police go to comedy clubs for jokes. They don't pull you over for a laugh. I'm a criminal defense attorney and this happens much more often than you think. And, every time it happens, it is the worst time, that is, if you care about justice. To be sure, it happens in the interrogation room, but more often it is part of plea negotiations. Whenever there are co-defendants, you may find yourself with a prosecutor who just needs one or some of them to take the weight. Sometimes, the discovery tells you who the heavy is, but a lot of times, it's up for the co-defendants to decide. If Aaron's death has taught this country anything, it should be that sentencing guidelines and prosecutorial discretion put defendants in impossible situations that led to desperate decisions. This was not only true with Aaron but also hundreds of thousands of mostly poor, uneducated people every day. So, I have seen sons take a hit for their mothers, girlfriends for boyfriends, and every other possible permutation. Many times, these people are not squeaky clean themselves, but they are also not guilty of the crimes they plead to. I am a traffic cop in the UK and we were filming for one of these Road Wars Police Interceptors Traffic Cops TV shows. As a part of the show, they ask us to do some filming of pulling people over and doing routine stops. So we decide that the next car to go through the set of lights we are currently at will get pulled over and we'll record what we do as part of a routine traffic stop. So this guy goes through in a normal manner and we follow behind, pull him over in a safe location, and we all pile out of the car. I'm walking over to the driver's side and about to explain to the guy that we're filming for this show and they just want to see what happens during a routine stop check. He rolls down the window and immediately, before I could even say a word, blurts "It's in the glove box." With a puzzled look on my face, I ask him what's in the glove box. "The drugs," comes the reply. So I detain him, cuff him and put him in the back of the traffic car, and my colleague and I search the glove box and find a substantial amount of H. When asked back at the station why he admitted the offense, he said he saw the 2 police cars. One was a backup car, and all the yellow jackets of the camera crew, and thought the game was up. If only he knew. Technically he was actually innocent because he hadn't committed an obvious crime up until that point. In traffic court, guy stands up. Judge says your officer isn't here. How do you plead? Guy starts explaining things, about to go into self-incrimination. Judge interrupts him and points out again that the officer isn't here. Someone next to the guy pipes up with plead innocent, you moron. He then proceeded to plead innocent and was a lesson to everyone else in court that day whose officer hadn't shown up. Good guy policeman. Gives you a ticket. Lets you off by not showing up to court. One of my friends had had a couple beers and was driving back home. A cop was pulled over on the side of the road ahead of him with its cherries flashing. My friend pulled up and over right in front of the cop. The cop came up to see if he needed help, smelled beer on him and gave him a DUI. He wasn't innocent by any means, but he wouldn't have been pulled over if he would have just drove on by. And I know drinking and driving is bad. I don't need to hear the lecture. It's just the only story I could think of, so I figured I'd share. Excuse me, so I don't know how you can associate with such a flagrant abuser of our country's laws. A friend of my sister's had already been ticketed twice by her college police for underage drinking. Her parents told her if she got ticketed again, they'd pull her out of school. So when the cops pulled her and her friends over one Friday night, she got the bright idea to flee. The cops caught her and cuffed her, so she ran again, this time managing to hide in the bushes and wriggle her way out of the cuffs. She stumbles home. The next day, the cops knock on her dorm room door. They ask for her by name, so she pretends to be her roommate. The cops give her a business card and tell her it's very important she contacts them ASAP. She flees her dorm room and spends the next couple days hiding in friends' dorm rooms, including my sister's, for a few hours. She gets phone calls from friends of hers. Apparently, the police are and canvassing the campus for her. They found her photo at a sorority house, so they know she lied to them. One of her sorority sisters finally convinces her to turn herself in. She gets charged with a long list of crimes, including several felony charges. Her parents decided to leave her in jail for the weekend instead of paying her bail. Once she gets out, she spent several hours combing the bushes where she'd hidden to find the handcuffs, since one of the charges was theft of police property. Why is this story relevant to this thread? Because the cop that caught her and her friends that night forgot his breathalyzer and let the entire group off with a lecture. So when we were 16, my friend was driving alone at night on his moped. It's fairly common in Norway to drive a moped with illegal modifications to the engine. They're really slow and you can't drive a car until you're 18 here. So when the blow lights flashed behind him, he figured frick it and tried to outrun them. He makes a U-turn and heads for our old middle school, then reaches back to flip the license plate up. He makes it through the school and loses them, as the car can't chase him through a narrow path he took. However, the license plate fell off when he tried to flip it, and they just drive to his home later the same night. Dude got a ticket and 2 months suspension on his license. Funny thing is, they weren't even trying to pull him over. They were on their way to something else, but the random U-turn made them suspicious. Not a lawyer or a police, whoa, man. But 15 in a park with some friends after our GCSEs, British. Obviously drinking age is 18. But we've got some vodka and crap. We're just a group of stupid 15-year-olds who have never really been drunk before and aren't going get drunk that day, as it turns out anyway. We've been there for about 15-20 minutes when a girl opposite me notices some coppers walking towards off. We're worried and one of us quickly goes over to a bush with a carrier bag full of bottles. Full bottles, mostly, and puts it in there to hide it. The coppers come up and ask us what we're doing. Oh, just hanging out, we say, and they ask us what we just put in the bushes. There's a brief conversation where it comes out that we had alcohol. The coppers are obviously just a bit weary and not in the mood to deal with kids in the park who aren't even causing a disturbance, so seem to be about to leave us be. They ask for our names, and we go around the circle until they come to me, and I give my full name. I have 3 middle names, all with several syllables in them. The coppers look at me and I realize that I wasn't meant to give the entirety of it. It's a bit awkward, and they ask me to repeat it. I now don't know what to do. Do I give just my first and last name, or the whole thing? What do you want me to repeat? So I repeat my full name again. The policeman looks at me and says, "Did you just give me your full name?" Again I nod. He looks at me and is clearly unsure of how to deal with this idiot. He then asks something along the lines of what are you planning on doing with your life, to which I answer I want to live in a caravan and smoke weed all day and never work, because I was slightly tipsy, having never drunk before, and being a really innocent and sheltered 15-year-old. In some ways, I thought it would be funny. I really have no idea what I was thinking. I'm having to dredge up the memory. The entire circle is silent. The policeman is staring at me and I'm inwardly going frick, having realized what I've done. There's a standoff for about 10 seconds until the policeman says, "Oh, this is such a waste of time," puts away his notepad and fricks off. TLDR. 15-year-olds in a park telling coppers they're going to grow weed in a caravan and giving middle names. I would like to hear your name now. First rule to follow with regard to police: never ever talk to the police without a lawyer present. Do not give a statement at the scene. Do not say a single word to them. Do not let police search your vehicle ever. Under certain circumstances they can. Do not let police into your house without a warrant ever. I hope you get the drift. My previous firm represented a small-time hood, B&E, breaking and entering specialist who loved gambling on horse races. He'd visit the same tab daily for years and he would spend his daylight hours putting bets on the trots, greyhounds and anything else that came his way. His nighttime hours were spent robbing people to fund his daytime lifestyle. He knew everyone in the tab and they knew him. One day, after spending all day at the venue, he managed to lose about $30,000 on the horses. He thought to himself, frick this, I'm going home to get a gun and getting my money back. He goes home, doesn't bother to change his clothes, been in the same place all day under CCTV, grabs his shotgun, puts on a balaclava and goes back to do an armed rob of the place he's been at all day. He runs in, pulls out his gun and screams at the cashier, "Gimme all your freaking money." The cashier recognizes his voice and his clothes. He yells back, "Jimmy, alias, you freaking idiot. Put that gun away." Jimmy's response, "It's not me. I swear it's not me." Bollocks. That is a scene from the movie Chopper with Eric Bana. One time my friend was drunk and broke some girl's window, so they called the cops. They came and told him to get on the ground. He replied, "I am on the ground." Fire response was a taser. First thing that came to mind while reading the title was, "Please your honor, I'd never violate her. I love little girls." Jury gasps. Friend of mine lost his license for running out to his car and getting CD of tunes we were working on from the stereo. He had to put the keys in and start the engine to turn on the stereo and a cop pulled up behind him. He was hammered like Jesus hands, but he had no intention of driving at all. I know a guy that almost got nabbed for DUI because he was sleeping it off in his backseat, but this saved his butt. "Officer, I lost my keys about 4 hours ago. I couldn't go anywhere if I wanted to." Everyone is posting stories of them, or someone else, confessing and getting into crap. My story is different. I confessed and got off scot-free. Here is my tale. I had met up with a friend that I hadn't seen in a bunch of years, and out of melancholy and indifference as to where to go, we ended up just buying a couple 6-packs and sitting in front of our old high school, in my car, while drinking them. So we're sitting there just listening to music and laughing about the old times, and I notice this one car has gone up and down the street a couple times with 2 dudes in it and watching us. The moment I point this out to my friend, they pull a U-turn and block our path while flashing their badges. Not that we were even thinking of driving off. I quickly give my beer to my buddy and tell him to dump it out his window, but he must have been a little more drunk than I though, cause he just sat there looking at me while the cop came up and tapped on my window. Now he's asking us what we're up to and checking my license, and I'm explaining why we're there and stuff. After like 10 minutes of checks and nothing comes up, they give back my license and they just stays there chatting with us while my buddy still has the beers in his hands. We end up talking about their kids and growing up etc, and in the end when the conversation just flounders a little, they're just like, "I crap you not." Okay, well, take it easy guys. You can have one more beer and then you're going to have to continue drinking at home. We finished our beers and take off without even a written warning. I'm neither, but I had a friend in high school who got into an accident. No one was injured, where she totaled her car and ripped up the back of a truck decently. Her parents got her a new junker car and her license was suspended for a month. Dang it all, she was determined to keep working. So on her way back from work she came across a ride program For non-Canadians, it's a drunk driving prevention program where they stand in the middle of the street and stop every car to ask you if you've been drinking. Very successful and doesn't really slow traffic. Usually they don't get a license and registration, they just check if you slur your words, etc. She freaked out and turned around. Obviously they pursued her and she got her license taken away and her car impounded. Not worth the extra shift. Stupidest thing was that she told us she will never ever not get jokes about it. I've never had someone innocent incriminate themselves. However, I did arrest the wrong guy once. There was a fight at a bar and the suspect was described as a white male, late 20s, about 5 feet 10, 180 pounds, with medium length brown hair, wearing a white t-shirt, jeans, and a green Celtics jersey with the number 23 on the back. I just happened to be driving by as the call comes out and see someone running across the street that perfectly matches the description. The victim positively IDs the suspect and he gets arrested. The suspect says it wasn't him, which is what everybody says, but this guy actually seemed believable and was very pleasant. The next day I get some video of the suspect and can immediately tell that the suspect was not the same guy that I arrested. I had to drop the case and called the guy to apologize. Had a friend who got caught by a cop hotboxing his car in a church parking lot. Apparently the officer thought he had a lot more drugs, cause after searching the car and getting really pissed he started yelling, saying that my friend had crumbled all the rest of his drugs up and that was destroying evidence and 3 years in prison. My friend then informed the officer, "I didn't destroy evidence, sir. You're just 30 minutes too late." He then not only received a ticket, he was dragged in for DUI since he was sitting in his driver's seat. He luckily got out of both. Worked closely with people going through youth court for the past 4 years. There are so many upsetting things about the system that I won't go into, but suffice to say that I've lost most of my faith in traditional justice process. My favorite almost incrimination that I may have stopped. Picked up a girl, 18, who was leaving an abusive relationship. She told me that she had a guy with a gun who would kill her ex. Batshit crazy guy, might have done it, and was about to make the call. I tell her it's crazy. She just left the guy angry. She told me, and if she was caught I sure wouldn't lie for her. Plus, I say, she's making the call to bitch crazy gun guy on her own phone after a fight. That's logged several places. Does she think she'll get away with that? Thoughtful pause. Liquid dance. Can I borrow your phone? Stunned silence. Common no. My roommate stole 2 TVS and a bunch of equipment totaling $14,000 from Best Buy when I worked there. I was loss prevention. I see him walking out. Tell him see you're at home and he goes on his merry way. I had no clue he was stealing. He had just come into a decent $80,000-ish inheritance, so I had no reason to believe he might. I get home that night. He tells me he stole it. Next morning I'm standing outside the doors waiting for the opening manager at 0600. I tell the manager what happened, where I live, and my roommate's name. Manager brings me into the office to write a statement. 10 minutes later cops show up and the manager says he coached the guy on what to do, and just got scared that he would be caught. Arrest him too. Cops place me under arrest. Although the arresting officer told me in private she didn't really believe I was in on it, but it did look bad. Take me to my house to collect the evidence. Roommate discovers I ratted him out. 4 cops pounding on the door with me behind them while telling them, "Guys, I gave you permission to enter. I live here too. We'll do that." Roommate then proceeds to tell officers it was all my idea and he didn't want to, but I told him I would get him evicted if he didn't do it. Expensive lawyer hired. Lawyer tells me if you had never reported him, even with you letting him walk out on camera, they never could have touched you. Lawyer says if I want to fight the charges he'll defend me, but my roommate was saying I was involved and odds were 50/50 at best if we went to trial. I tell him plan on going to trial, but if the DA comes back with a plea to misdemeanor with no jail time we'll take it. DA wanted to take a hard line and kept offering plea to felony theft and I'll only get 180 days in jail. Kept saying no and my lawyer agreed. Said take it to trial if they won't offer no jail time. Eventually they came back with 2 years suspended and conviction will be set aside after 2 years of probation. But still a felony. Took it as the conviction dropped after 2 years. Still prevents me from obtaining a security clearance, but that's all. Grand total. 2 years probation. $6,500 in lawyer fees, and realistically about 4 years setback in my life as a whole. All because I tried to do the right thing. Upside. Now I'm the second youngest salaried manager in my company, and just got informed I'll be promoted in the next few months. Because every time I tell this story people call me crazy for copying a plea to something I wasn't guilty of. If I had gone to trial and been found guilty, I was facing up to 10 years in jail. Unlikely that it would be so hard, but it was a risk I was willing to take. Once the cops pulled me over as I was riding home from a friend on my bicycle. I had a bag of old 1.44 meg floppy drives. Suddenly out of nowhere, 2 cop cars corner me and I almost slam into one of them. Out comes lots of cops and one of them goes, "Hey you, what are you carrying in your bag over there?" With adrenaline rushing through my system, my idiotic brain goes, drugs. Lots of freaking drugs, and one of the cops pulls his gun out of the holster, but doesn't aim it at me. I nearly shat myself, but I smiled weakly and went, "No, just kidding. They're just floppy disks," and I opened a packet and showed them the disks. Now, I was stupid to do this even because they were all filled with copied games and whatnot, and this was during the don't copy that floppy age. My god, such stupidity. Anyway, they let me off with a warning not to be a snarky bee. Hahaha, I didn't listen, so the joke's on them. I was at the police station to get a records check to volunteer at an old age home. While I was waiting, there was a smelly man with torn off jean shorts, a leather vest and no shirt. He would sit in his chair for 3 minutes, then get up and go and talk to the woman behind the counter, who would tell him to sit down and wait. Eventually, 2 officers came up and started speaking quietly and calmly to the man. They told him he was under arrest for fraud and asked him to quietly step into the next room. The man did not comply and asked loudly, "Fraud for what?" The 2 officers remained calm and continued to ask him to step into the next room. The man continued to yell, "Fraud for what?" more and more loudly. The police officers were now getting agitated and told the man that if he didn't calm down and come into the next room, they were going to have to handcuff him. As he continued to yell, one officer tried to lead him by the arm to the next room, and the man yanked his arm away and started to walk away. That was the end of the officer's patience. One of them shoved the man against a nearby wall, grabbed the man's arm, and pulled it to the middle of the guy's back. Ow, ow. Ooh, it was like Charlie bit my finger in the police station. As they led him away in handcuffs, the man started saying to everyone in the waiting area, see, this is how they get you. This is how they get you. Yeah, buddy, that's how they get you, alright. TLDR. Crazy guy wouldn't cooperate with the cops and paid the price for it. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.